Hunger and poverty, to me, are the great enemies of mankind. Having lived through the economic depression of the early 30s, I know some of this from personal experience, never to the same extent that I've seen in many third world countries, such as during the middle 60s, the hunger and famine of India and Pakistan, which left a dreadful impression on me that I carry with me today in many other parts of the world.
The whole world has been shocked by recent famines, but outrage has often given way to feelings of hopelessness about the enormity of the problem. Africa is the hungriest continent, and nearly every statistic shows that the situation is getting worse. Yet all the technology is available for a revolutionary change in African agriculture, which can actually prevent the dreadful toll of famine. How this transformation can happen is shown by the work in Ghana of an international development initiative, the Sasakawa Global 2000 Agricultural Project. It is an important model for the future of how Africa can feed itself. The commitment of the Sasakawa Global 2000 project is to the small subsistence farmers of Ghana and to the conviction that putting the results of agricultural research into the hands of these farmers can revolutionize food production in Africa.
By doing research alone, it seems impossible to feed the hungry world. Whenever you have a good agricultural research findings, this should be brought to the farmers' field effectively. Whenever you go to International Research Institute, they say, we are here to feed the hungry world. Well, if their slogan is that, they should pay attention on the fact that how well their research results are being practically utilized on the farmer's land.
Al-Hassan Youssef leaves for work with his sons from Busa, a small village near Wa in Upper West Ghana. This community lives on what they can grow on their small plots not far south of the Sahara Desert. Staying alive has been a constant struggle against all the uncertainties of Ghanaian agriculture, like drought and poor soils. Until recently, life for their community was the same as it had been for generations. Without access to modern technology, they have developed sophisticated survival skills in a harsh environment. But now things are changing for their community, and they are the pioneers of this change. Norman Borlaug in Adoye, a village in central Ghana. He has spent a lifetime using new technology to combat food shortages, and in 1970 he won the Nobel Peace Prize for introducing high-yielding wheat varieties to small-scale farmers.
I tried to turn back time to how all of this started out. You see, this is closer to the soil than any of the cultures of the so-called industrialized developed world. And I guess back behind it all is the very fact that I'm able to understand many of these things, having been raised on a very small farm. And I understand the struggles of the people to try to improve their standards of living.
He inspired a process which came to be known as the Green Revolution, which has dramatically increased agricultural yields in many other parts of the world. So why not Africa? This was a question which struck Ryoichi Sasakawa, a man who had become well known for supporting third world development through the Japanese Shipbuilding Industry Foundation, and who remembers that 50 years ago, Japan also had too little food. Deeply disturbed by the images of famine in Ethiopia and Sudan, he was among the first to fly in food aid to those countries in late 1984. But he wanted to treat the causes of food shortage in African countries rather than just reacting to its consequences. So he got his office to contact Norman Borlaug to see what could be done.
His public relations man. He said, Mr. Sasakawa becomes very upset every afternoon when he turns on his television set for the late world news, and he sees all of this hunger and misery in Ethiopia and in southern Sudan. And he wants to know why something isn't being done about it, like was done in Pakistan and in India in the middle 1960s, when everyone said India and Pakistan are hopeless causes. And you and your group of scientists moved in and changed this situation dramatically.
Devastated by the famines of the 60s, India and Pakistan had got together with scientists like Norman Borlaug to bring modern methods into agriculture. In a period of just 20 years, they had more than quadrupled production.
In 1985, India gave a gift of 100,000 tons of wheat to the government and people of Ethiopia. Who would have thought in 1965, in the depth of the food crisis and famine in India, when many of the authorities and the prognosticators of the world said there's no hope for India, who would have thought then that this could happen?
Could this experience transfer to Africa? This crucial question was discussed at an international conference in Geneva in 1985, and Norman Borlaug said yes, it could. So Ryoichi Sasakawa pledged funds for an initial pilot project. But they needed also the political support of the African countries, and ex-President Jimmy Carter offered his help. Well respected in Africa, his report Towards Global 2000 had highlighted food deficits as a key issue.
Our organization has nothing to do with any governments. It's a private group of people. Our hope is to alleviate the starvation in Africa. And we've chosen 3 or 4 nations to visit with the hope of improving the production of food grains, not on the large corporate farms, not on the big cooperative farms, but among the small farm families.
Ghana still suffers from many of the symptoms of underdevelopment: bad roads, poor communications, and inadequate health care. To make things worse, the population is growing by over 3% each year, meaning it will double in the next 20 years. Already, Ghana has an overall food deficit and relies on imported food. And like much of the Third World, the population is increasingly moving to the cities, which are often unable to cope with the mounting population. Unless food production is dramatically increased, Ghana, like many African nations, faces disaster. This situation is of great concern to Ghana's Secretary for Agriculture, Steve Obimpe.
Agriculture is the backbone of the economy. Majority of Ghanaians live on agricultural activity in one way or the other. Since time of independence, Ghana had lived substantially on agriculture. Major part of the foreign exchange earning was derived from cocoa. We have launched an economic recovery program, and having assessed all the resources that we have at our disposal, we believe that it is in the agricultural sector that the economic recovery program will make an impact.
Subsistence agriculture in Ghana has followed a shifting pattern, where new land is constantly cleared and cultivated for a short period until the soil is exhausted. It is an agriculture which needs few inputs from outside, but it relies on large resources of land and produces very low yields in the 2 main staple crops, maize and sorghum. A group of women farmers in Busa. They've formed a collective to try the new methods, and Louisa Diang is their extension officer, with the job of assisting them in taking up the new technologies. A recent memory has brought into sharp focus why they are so anxious to learn.
Well, in 1983, there was a general shortage of food, and because of that, we were really very hungry. It affected them in their health. In fact, a lot of children were poorly nourished, and because of that, they were sick. The men and women themselves were sick, and they could not do much of the work because they were really hungry. We cannot really say that there was a family that wasn't affected.
Well, we could say that there was starvation, I would say, severe starvation on the land, unprecedented in our history, to the point that we had actually to appeal to the international community for some food aid. As a result of that, there was an awakening of all Ghanaians, not only people in government, but all Ghanaians of all walks of life, to take agriculture perhaps more seriously than we hitherto as a nation had taken agriculture.
One person who has taken up the challenge of agricultural development with great energy is Imoru Seydou. Initially, the project had decided not to go as far north as Upper West Ghana. But as Deputy Secretary for Agriculture in the Upper West, he persuaded them differently. This store of sorghum is being built up as a buffer against bad years from local production, so they need not rely on food aid. Food aid may be necessary in an emergency like Ethiopia, but he feels strongly that Ghana should be self-sufficient in food.
Food aid actually is a disincentive to local production, the local farming community. With our experiences with the Sasakawa Global 2000 in this region, I'm convinced that we have the potential to feed ourselves and we don't need food aid. What we need is the appropriate technology which would enable us to exploit our own potential, which we know exists.
Self-sufficient development. The commitment, too, of Ghana's leader, Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings, who has been enthusiastic in his support of the new methods. He is increasingly concerned at his country's dependence on foreign loans.
We have borrowed so much that for every 100 pounds we earn by selling our cocoa and other exports, we use a sizable percentage to pay for some of our debts. We cannot continue to borrow and be in debt all the time.
But how to introduce the improved methods when so many previous projects had made little impact? The backing of the Ghana government was crucial for the strategy. They would provide the organization, and Norman Borlaug chose a high-quality team to be the catalyst for the new technologies. First was the country director, Dr. Eugenio Martinez.
Dr. Martinez is a low-key, very effective leader.
But then how about Brona Hafwan Ashanti?
He brings together a warm family under his quiet leadership.
Well, I think I like to be a little more cautious this year.
Our philosophy was to try to improve whatever the farmers have. So we dedicate most of the effort initially to work together with the farmers, to show them and find out how much was possible to increase the production, the productivity of their farms.
Understanding agriculture and the complexities of introducing technology in a third world context were key attributes of the team, all of them from third world farming communities themselves. Matthias Akpasoy is the foremost maize breeder in Ghana.
The person who provides this spark here in Ghana is Dr. M.K. Akpasoy.
Don't you think so?
From Senegal, they chose Dr. Marcel Galiba.
He too is a very dedicated young scientist. He has less practical experience, but he is catching on very fast, and he has done an amazingly good job also.
And the willingness of extension people.
And from South Korea,
There is
Dr.
no
Chong
doubt
Woon
to
Hong.
expand, something like even 100,000.
Dr. Hong, first of all, is a very talented agronomist. He knows soils. He knows how to restore fertility to infertile, worn-out soils. He is what I call an integrator. He can put the pieces together. But more important than any other is his enthusiasm. Enthusiasm and a positive outlook is very important when you're trying to transform a traditional society.
We are planting the crop into the soil. The reason why we are doing that is that soil will supply the plant nutrient to the crops. Now, but in many places, soils are not fertile enough. Mostly in the tropical soils, particularly, they are lacking in nitrogen, phosphorus mostly. Now, then in such a soil, if you try to plant something and expecting some reasonable yield, you should apply some nutrient by whatever means.
Much of the countryside in Ghana looks green, particularly now in the rainy season. But the apparent fertility is an illusion, depending as it does on a complex and fragile system of trees and plants which do not produce food. In reality, the soil is very infertile, and producing crops is a constant struggle against barren land. So some sort of fertilizer is essential.
You can think of organic matter or chemical fertilizer. Then many people are arguing that in the tropics, farmers are so poor, the use of chemical fertilizer may not be appropriate. But use of organic matter is also inappropriate in this circumstance because there is no organic matter. Usually the organic manure is coming from animal droppings. Here, they do not have enough food to feed human beings. How can they feed the animals? If you do not have animals, how can you get animal droppings? If you do not have animal droppings, how can you have organic manure? If you can get better result, why should we hesitate to recommend the chemical fertilizer?
Even if organic manure were available, to provide as much nitrogen as a single bag of fertilizer like this, you would need about 30 bags of animal manure. For this maize farmer, one 50-kilogram bag of fertilizer is quite enough to carry. So for many reasons, chemical fertilizer is the only feasible solution. What have been the underlying reasons for the project's success? One of the first principles was to concentrate on the smaller farmers like these in the maize-growing area of Damango.
The main difference with other projects in the past has been that ours is very simple. We intend to do it simple so the farmers and everybody will understand the principle of it.
So they recommend planting in lines, whereas traditional planting is at random, and just one type of fertilizer at the planting stage. Another key factor was the introduction of new high-yielding seed varieties, with the ability to maximize the benefit of fertilizer application. These varieties have been bred to meet local conditions by the Crops Research Institute in Kumasi and derived from seeds produced by the international research centers. Another principle is that the technology should be tested out on the farmer's own fields on a large enough scale to realize appreciable economic benefits. They ask farmers to divide their fields into two halves and to use traditional methods on one half and the new methods on the other. These two plots were planted with the same seed just one day apart. They call these plots production test plots, or PTPs. Azuma Kunda has worked her farm as a PTP for the first time this year.
She planted all on the same, on just a day difference. Now for the PPT, she could able to afford fertilizer to apply on the PPT, but she never had fertilizer on her own field. That's why there has been some differences. She says that the project has been very beneficial to her, and she thinks it's good. That's her impression about the project.
This astonishing yield response to fertilizer is one of the reasons for the project's success. Azuma can expect to get 3 or 4 times as much yield on her PTP than on her traditional plot, so she can expect significant profits after harvest. It's a far cry from the small test plots, just a few meters square, with which most scientists try to convince farmers to change their methods.
In this way, the farmers can test this technology by themselves in their own condition, in their own land. And it's after them that they decided if the technology is good or not.
Akhtar Zakaria's family also have a maize PTP near Damango. Like most farmers, they went over to the new methods on their whole field after the first year. There just seemed no point using traditional methods on half of their land anymore.
Global 2000 method really has proved to us to be better yield-wise as against the traditional one. From a test or experiment we've carried out as farmers, we realized that the traditional method really does not give a very good result as against the Global 2000. For instance, When I had a trial, indeed, I had 21 bags from the Global 2000 method as against 8 bags from the traditional method. This is why I want to impress upon you to go by the Global 2000 method.
The new methods mean that farmers get on average 2.5 times the yield in maize and 3.5 in sorghum. Even after discounting the costs of the fertilizer and other inputs, they double their profits in maize and triple their profits in sorghum. With these sort of improvements, it's not surprising that actor Zakaria is so enthusiastic, along with other project pioneers like Al-Hassan Youssef, J.N. Bana, and Al-Hassan Samsadin. In Ghana, they started with a small number of test plots in 1986, 20 in the northern region and 20 in Upper West. Just 40 plots in the whole of Ghana. In 1987, they had expanded to 1,600. And by 1988, there were nearly 20,000. For 1989, tens of thousands of farmers applied to take part. It's becoming hard to cope with the demand.
Certainly for Ghana, we are amazed at the rate of adoption by our farmers. We have targeted, for instance, this year to have about 19,000 farmers to be directly involved in the program. Our estimation is that there are more. This figure might have been doubled purely because of people actually copying. They are not directly involved, but just coming to spy on those involved and then copying. Our projection for next year is some 75,000. This is amazing, really.
But how can a team of just 4 scientists create this sort of change on this sort of scale? The answer is that they can't. They have been the catalyst for change. The people who have created the change are the farmers themselves and Ghana's Extension Service, through the contribution of Extension officers like Osman Abdullahi. Farmers such as Azuma Kunda are in constant need of technical advice, and Ghana's Department of Extension is designed to introduce new ideas and new technologies at the grassroots level. Their success explains why the ideas have been taken up with such amazing speed.
But of course, nothing could be accomplished without weaving in the entire Extension Service, giving them the technology, showing them how to demonstrate it, first on dozens of farms and then spreading it each year to more and more farms. They are the real unsung heroes. The Extension people and other officials of the Ministry of Agriculture of the Government of Ghana have been the leaders on the firing front that have moved this so-called revolution in maize and sorghum production forward at an amazingly fast rate.
How's your farm? We are doing well.
One group of farmers who started last year with the new methods is the group of women farmers from Busa in Upper West. To work together as farmers, they have had to challenge not only a difficult environment, but also some of the traditional beliefs that women shouldn't farm crops like sorghum.
Really, the whole problem is that certain times some traditional beliefs or activities must be broken. So for African women, I would say that the best is to get educated and then come out and also work, because I don't see anything or any barrier as regards to women coming out to grow this kind of food crops. Last year when they started, it was a little bit discouraging. This year it is more encouraging, because last year they had 3 bags per acre, and that was because they did not start cropping early. And also the weather was a very bad weather to such an extent that they could not get anything from it. This year, as at now, looking at the crops and the activities, I believe that it's going to be much, much successful than last year. You know, we gave them some kind of educational programs on this new technology. Apart from that, they also learn from the husbands who have been taking this new technology and whose farms are just close by to their farms. So this is the way by which they are able to pick up the new technology that was brought. When we compare the fields, we can see that even some of their women farms are much, much better than that of the men. because they really are very concentrated in the farms and they work very hard.
Farmers need to become more knowledgeable and more self-reliant. And this is underlined by another of the project's basic principles. They give nothing away for free.
Well, I don't get physical cash to pay to buy the fertilizer. But this Global 2000 helps me by supplying me the fertilizer. And then when I finish the work at the end of the year, then I pay.
When I came here for the first time, and we met, one chief, and he asked us, what are you going to bring to us? Are you going to bring to us some car, some fertilizer, or tractor? Well, it was a very difficult question for us to answer promptly, but somehow I volunteered and answered. We are not going to bring anything free. No fertilizer, no car, no tractor. Then he said, then what are you going to give us? And I said, we are going to bring our heart and our experience. I have a 22 years experience. That experience and my heart I'm going to bring to here and to work with you. Not help you simply, but to help you yourself.
Initially, the project underwrote all the loans of fertilizer and improved seeds themselves, but their main aim was to stimulate a self-sustaining change. So together with the Department of Extension, they soon turned to other sources of credit. But would the banks lend to poor farmers?
We poor farmers cannot get credits in the banks, simply because when you go to the bank for money, in fact, these officers will not look you because you have nothing with you. Only this money has been given to the richest farmers because they are well-to-do.
But is Sakan Nsinwala right? Awutu Kati is the manager of the local branch of the cooperative bank. Bankers very rarely have enough confidence to lend to peasant farmers, and it's not often that they go out into the fields to visit them. But it's been one of Imoru Sedu's achievements to persuade the more progressive bankers to see for themselves what's happening.
First, with the inception of the program, we've taken bankers to the field to see what is on the field. I think that's what the bankers need mostly, to be assured that whatever happens, they will be able to recover what they advance to the farmer as a loan.
The first time you started the job, did you get any assistance from anybody? Or you started by yourself?
No, from these extension officers.
The extension officers?
Yeah, they come from what to help me.
Did they give you money or?
No, they don't give me physical money, cash, but they help me by plowing the field for me.
I see.
At the end of the year, then I pay.
You said they gave you assistance in
by
land preparation. How about the other inputs like fertilizer, seed, and other things? How did you get them?
They supply me still.
They give you the money, they buy for it, or you think they get assistance also from somebody to help you?
I think they get assistance
from
somebody.
Where?
Well,
have you ever been told about it?
It is the duty of the extensionists and, for that matter, Global 2000 to educate the farmer to know that it is the banks that are sponsoring them and not Global 2000 as such, because some of them have the impression that Global 2000 is having a lump of money where we can chip it off and give it to the farmer and do anything to like with it. No, we don't want to do that. We want to educate the farmer to know that they owe the banks, and that is where they can get their credit facilities.
The bankers still don't lend directly to the poorer farmers, though indirectly they financed most of the 7,000 farmers who participated in Upper West in 1988, an important advance, since farming in these difficult environments is always a risk. Even this year, when the rains have been fairly good, there have been problems.
Personally, I'm not very much satisfied with the crop status now. Some farmers could not have the compound fertilizer on time, which was necessary for the planting. So there are many fields showing very delayed growth. That's one thing. Also, we had difficulty in mobilizing the bank. So here, with this year's experience, I'm clearly learning that for the development of agriculture in the country. Research is only one thing. Extension is another one thing. We need to have government support. We need to have some, support from the banks.
Best time to thank Guinea.
Every fortnight, the Extension officers in Upper West meet to share problems and to get advice from the Ministry of Agriculture's technical advisors.
Striker may not affect it very much. Yield may reduce, but not as much.
So now I don't actually know.
Agriculture has been described as a battle against such things as low rainfall and poor soil.
The nitrogen is the limiting factor because it is only nitrogen that makes the plant look green. If you are considering potassium or phosphorus, that is basically for the seed. The fertilizer has never dissolved because of the 3 weeks drought we have had so far. If the rain should come and the fertilizer should dissolve and the nitrogen absorbed, I'm sure your plants will change color, please.
Fertilizer, pests, diseases, new varieties, a whole range of important technical issues. Currently, the technical officers want to encourage thinning and transplanting of sorghum, and Louise is here to get advice for her women farmers.
The fertilizer, or whatever we put to the soil, is meant for only one plant. And if you put in fertilizer for one plant and you have 10, 20, or 5 in the whole, it means that you will not get the desired effect because the plants will share it with the other crops, and therefore yields will definitely reduce. For example,
There is a growing hunger for knowledge and information about the new production methods. Louisa Dayang has become part of the community rather than an outsider. That's why the group have taken to the new methods with such enthusiasm. Introducing fertilizer has stimulated the adoption of a whole range of other improved techniques.
There's just a lot of fallacy about the ultra-conservative, the resistance of change of the traditional farmer. You show him how he, through the adoption of a new technology, can increase his yield or productivity by 5 or 6-fold, and he's ready to change. And never underestimate the keen powers of observation of the small peasant farmer. He may be illiterate, but he can figure whether the new technology has the possibility to bring he and his family a slightly better income.
Once they know the concept, they know how to do it. For example, when I was recommending to apply fertilizer, I told them, you make one hole here for seed, then another hole nearby for fertilizer. Some people will complain, this will be very difficult and complicated. But some farmers eventually invented some very simple tool to make 2 holes at one time so that they can put 1 hole seed, 1 hole fertilizer.
There's no question that farmers take enthusiastically to new technology when it's introduced in the right way. But is all technology good for development? Traditionally, the tools for farming in Africa have been the cutlass and the hoe, and to a lesser extent, bullocks have been used for ploughing, something which the project wants to encourage. But why not tractors?
Personally, I do not really support the use of a tractor. Unfortunately, somehow, through past aid programs, they brought the tractors. And once farmers tasted the taste of a tractor, it is really difficult for them to stay away from the tractor. I mean, they are using the cutlass and hoe, and suddenly they are jumping to tractor. I think this is not a healthy approach at all. When you have tractors, you should have some kind of supporting systems. Many countries, you go around the countryside, you will see these monsters are just simply laying down in the field because of, missing of a small part. And the tractor is very expensive. If foreign aid stops, it will not move at all. It will be wise to follow step-by-step improvement technology. So I don't like to use the word green revolution. I would say technology evolution, that will be more in a wise way for this country.
My own personal view is that research, experimentation, to develop new technologies is the first step along the way towards production. But there are many scientists who believe that if research is well done, that automatically this will reflect in higher yields and production. This is not necessarily true. I long ago decided that we had to move these results onto the farm as soon as there was available the pieces to put together to make a sizable change in yield and production. This was done in Mexico when there was no extension service. We in research did it, and it became a part of our philosophy. And I am very impatient with those who think that a good piece of research automatically produce more food.
We need to learn new things all the time. But at the same time, I think, in case of agricultural science, doing research alone should not be meaningful. I know there are many scientists who want to remain in the laboratory and continue the research. But I think there should be some people who really is interested in bringing the message, slipping in the library to the farmer's very land.
Just one example of the project's commitment to bringing research results into the field is their involvement with the production of a new variety of maize called quality protein maize here in Sunyani. The idea is to improve the nutritional value of maize. This is the Well Baby Clinic in Sunyani. Since the severe food shortage, the number of badly malnourished children has been declining, and these mothers are concerned that their babies stay healthy. One problem is that in this area the main staple crop is maize, and maize has low levels of two of the essential amino acids which the body needs for building proteins. Scientists discovered a gene which could increase the amount of the deficient amino acids in maize. The result was a variety with protein quality close to milk.
When the value of protein quality maize was recognized in about 1964, there was a euphoria throughout the world where maize breeding was well advanced, and they thought that they would incorporate this very rapidly into the improved maize varieties as a premium for nutrition.
But initially there were problems. The kernels were soft and were susceptible to attack from insects and diseases. It took nearly 20 years of plant breeding to eliminate these defects.
I think this is a major breakthrough and will start a revolution in nutrition in this country, because the majority of the people depend on maize as a major diet. I'm looking forward to the future as a new revolution if this new variety will replace the ordinary maize in this country. Then we shall be having children who will grow very fast, intelligent, and healthy.
The first step for Ghana's successful technology evolution has been the introduction of chemical fertilizer, which depends for its manufacture on non-renewable petroleum products. In the long term, what will guarantee that the system is sustainable in the environmental sense?
I object to some of the ideas that I constantly hear being proposed by certain narrow-minded individuals in the affluent nations that in essence say, don't upset status quo in the third world countries. Don't introduce modern technology into agriculture because it's not sustainable, while they themselves are privileged to be utilizing vast quantities of non-renewable resources for their own and their own society's personal benefits. I'm firmly committed to using the best technology that's available at any given point in time. It's a luxury to wait until you have something better. As soon as you have something that has the potential to produce more food and that it can be done with reasonable levels of risk, put it into operation on farms, never waiting for the perfect. And with the population monster relentlessly pushing forward, 85 million more people every year on a worldwide basis. That means approximately 164 more people every minute. There's no time for status quo.
But it's no use advising farmers to use fertilizer if it's not available, and there have been problems.
I don't think we have made any success yet. If our target is the achievement of a green revolution in this country, I think we have made only small, good start.
Hey, watch yourself.
Real problem is now starting. This year, we planned to work with 10,000 farmers. In fact, more than 10,000 farmers expressed their intention to work with us. But we could not achieve that target. That itself tells that in the system, there is a problem. There is a grand problem.
One of the consequences of the project is that it puts increasing stress on the whole system of delivering agricultural inputs. For fertilizer, a major new development is to use the Volta River to overcome the severe transportation difficulties in Ghana. But there's a lot more still needs to be done if the program is to reach the majority of farmers.
We are looking at creating a favorable atmosphere within which agriculture will grow. By this, we want to address the 4 essential issues of incentives, infrastructure, input, and institutions. By way of institutions, we want to strengthen our capability to deliver, the delivery system. Infrastructure, we want to be sure that when our farmers use these inputs to produce, we are able to move the produce to the marketing centers, and therefore we are talking about improvement in road conditions.
A more efficient distribution system is also being set up from local centers to provide the inputs and supplies the farmer needs to implement the new methods. And when production increases, a whole set of new problems arise which need government action. Storage facilities, both in the villages and in regional centers like this, are essential to prevent all the surplus production being dumped on the market straight after harvest. Rapidly increasing production can cause a price collapse in the market, a strong disincentive for the farmer to adopt new methods.
About incentives, of course, the farmer must be motivated. Therefore, we're talking about remunerative prices, minimum guaranteed prices, so that the farmer can get appropriate reward for his efforts in the field.
And for the future, Ghana is investing in the education of its children. It's the children who will suffer if today's policies are wrong, and it's the children who will take the next generation of technology into the fields. It's up to the politicians to create a climate in which agriculture can thrive.
This is a new experience for me here south of the Sahara, but I see the same fire now beginning to burn. I call this setting the grassroots on fire, and it's heating up for the political decision makers. And God willing, and also the will of the political leaders, the opportunities exist here in the next 2 or 3 years for a major breakthrough in production that can become a model for African countries south of the Sahara. I personally cannot live comfortably in the midst of abject poverty and hunger and human misery. If I have the possibilities of, even in a modest way, with the help of my many scientific colleagues, of doing something about improving the lot of these many young children for their generation.